Okay. Okay, we are on the Q&A panel for the art of being seen. I would like you both first to start off by introducing yourselves.
Hi, my name is Martine Remy. I use they, he pronouns. I'm the director, editor, and producer of The Art of Being Seen.
Okay?
Hi, I'm Cal Russell. Am I? Yes. My name is Cal Russell.
Yes.
I use he, him pronouns, and I am the primary cast of The Art of Being Seen.
Yes. So what we're going to do is go back and forth as far as questions go. I want to start off with Martina. I have a question for you. Now, I know that you've been studying dramatic arts as well as digital media design. So I'd like to consider myself intelligent, but if someone were to ask me what digital media design is specifically, what would that be?
Digital media and design is UConn's way of classifying any kind of film-based major. For UConn, that means film, 2D and 3D animation, game design, and web design. I
Okay.
am under the film video concentration.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And Cal, tell us a bit about yourself, meaning I'd like you to tell us a few things that we didn't find out in the movie.
Um, well, I've been doing theater for 14 years.
Mhm.
Um, it's one of my favorite hobbies. Um, I really love studying psychology. I graduated with a human development and family studies major, and I currently live in Connecticut post grad.
Ah, yes, the Connecticut question. This one is to both of you. I am a New Yorker, so typically I go between New York and Philadelphia, but I have yet to get to Connecticut. So if I were to ask you both about theater slash film, would you say it's a rich environment for student filmmakers to grow?
It's a rich theater environment within Connecticut. We have a lot of good theaters. There's the Bushnell. I think you have Eugene O'Neill, and then on campus we have things like the Jorgensen. I am less hesitant to say that about film. I have attended Bridgeport Film Festival, and I know that Bridgeport is a really strong area for filmmaking in Connecticut, but and also Hartford. But other than that, I have to say I don't think there is too much going on film wise. Most people head up towards Boston, Salem area in
Ah,
Mass.
gotcha. And would you concur with that, Cal?
So I don't really know a lot of on the film side of things, and I'm actually from Massachusetts, so I have not a lot of knowledge about Connecticut theater. I think also the close proximity to New York City is pretty awesome
Hmm.
in terms of like Broadway and stuff like that. I think UConn has a pretty solid theater program that I was not a part of, but we also have two theater clubs that are very engaged with the campus community, and they're both pretty decently sized. So,
Very nice. Okay, thank you for that insight because I have yet to get there, and I think it's important that students have as many opportunities as they could possibly have. Um, Martina, I had read somewhere that are you currently still taking commissions on the art side of things? Because I didn't know that you were doing that until recently.
I mean, I started commissions when I was a freshman in college and I never closed them. I am open to work in general. Currently, I'm working as a producer in a company based on campus called the Chrysalis Productions.
Mhm.
And I do have a couple odd jobs producing through the Humanities Institute as well as just side projects that my friends are passionate in general. And on the theater side of things, currently I am production stage manager and producer for a production of 35 millimeter that's happening off campus.
35 millimeter. Very nice. Cal, I'd like to ask you a question relative to theater. Because you've been doing theater for so long, there are many actors that often say that the actor that I was when I started is not the actor I am today. So if I were to ask you, have you grown substantially, or maybe what's the one thing about your performance in theater that you are proud of at this point?
so I definitely have grown substantially. I've been doing theater since I was 8 years old, so I've grown substantially in the literal and figurative way.
Mhm.
Um, I think my biggest or my largest growth in theater was in high school. We had a very um, well-developed theater program. And my director, Aiden O'Hara at Wayland High School, constantly pushed me to take more acting classes and be as involved in shows as possible. If I wasn't as available a certain quarter or semester, I would be encouraged to go on the tech side of things. So I did run crew a couple times. Um, I think that theater, at least for me, is you grow as you do. So experience is very, very necessary. I think just constantly being a part of shows, and if you can't be a part of shows on the acting side, being on the technical side, or just being behind the scenes, see as many shows as you can. And I think that really contributed to a lot of my growth as a performer.
Thank you very much for that. It wasn't again until recently, Martine, that I saw that at one point you had been doing acting. Is that something that you will ever go back to? Because as I understand it, did you not leave performing theater for a while?
Yes. So I can talk about my work in progress right now. I have just wrapped production on my next documentary film, When Peering In, which is an experimental documentary exploring my own personal life in theater. I started theater 10 years ago when I was in seventh grade. I went to a local children's theater in my area, and then I went to a performing arts high school. It was like a magnet high school in Connecticut. And I majored in acting for the first 3 years, and I ended up transferring to the film major my senior year because I didn't really feel comfortable as a trans person performing in the program anymore. And I left theater. And this past semester, in filming the documentary, I returned to acting for the first time in, I think, like 5 years as the Dormouse in Page to Stage, the same club that this documentary features, production of Alice
Okay.
by Heart. So that was really interesting. I performed at Homecoming this semester, as well as just some other performative pieces in the documentary itself.
Very, very nice. I also noticed that you just had posted up When Peering In. Now, is that's something new as well, correct?
That's that project.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure about that because I'm like, okay, we're on the
Yeah.
same page there. Okay. And is it your intention? Do you feel as though you'd like to grow not only as a director, but would you like to grow with your acting experiences? Or are you really more on the film side of things at this point, would you say?
I would say after performing in Alice by Heart that I am permanently behind the scenes.
Ah, okay.
I find acting really interesting, but I do think I am just a behind the scenes person.
Understood. I gotcha. Now, on the flip side of the fence, Cal, because you're so heavily involved in the acting side of things and going through this experience and being part of film, would it be, would you say advantageous to you at some point in time? Would you look at going into film?
I'm not 100% sure. It's not something I've really thought about.
Okay.
I think my heart really belongs on the stage,
Mm.
specifically. I find acting and performance, um, and stage performance in particular, to be a very good outlet for me. Um, I really enjoy just embodying characters, and
Sure.
I think I would lose a little bit of that if I were to transition fully to something like film or just working behind the scenes. I really enjoy performing.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So I know, and I suspect both of you concur on this. Martine, I know that you are championing for trans rights. And that's super important. And younger voices are probably some of the best voices we have because I'm going to venture to guess that your experiences and including some that are in the film, if I were to ask you what you think that we as a community need to do to better address trans people in our communities, besides supporting the film and so on, what would that answer look like?
Support new representation, good new representation, specifically by trans artists that comes out into this world. It is films that bring and normalize trans people, especially young trans people, that are pivotal right now more than ever. Um, and just generally supporting any kind of art that comes from trans creators. I mean, obviously, trans theater is a soft spot for me, but like across the field, in general, I think that just provide putting your money where your mouth is and generally supporting trans rights in politically and within the arts is super important right now.
Thank you for that. Cal, anything to add for that?
Yeah, I think Martine really hit the nail on the head there. And I completely agree with him. I think that I just want to echo specifically just performances and art by trans people, not by cis people for trans people. I think that with any sort of minority group, you can't really completely understand or completely tell their full story unless you are within the community itself. And even then, there's a lot of variance there. I would never feel comfortable telling the story of a black trans woman or something like that because I am a white trans man. I think
Sure.
that there is so much intersectionality and different experiences. And I think really highlighting those experiences as well are is really important. And I think that um, a lot of representation right now is made by cis people, and that doesn't really get to the core of what being trans or what even being queer means because they just haven't had that lived experience.
Sure. Would it be fair to say that both of you feel as though you are seen in your communities? Really seen?
Sometimes. I I address this in when peering in a little bit. Representation is not representation and actually being seen within the theater community. I mean, I will speak for myself here personally. It hasn't been like 100% on its game. And I do believe that there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. I've had friends that have been lucky enough to not face any of those issues, but I have also had friends that have faced those issues to an extreme. So, I mean, I'm glad that those who get accepted, and that the representation that we have is there, but I do think we have a long way to go.
I
Yeah.
think acceptance is very contingent on passing. It's discussed a little bit in the film. Um, but I think that for me, myself, I didn't start getting male roles until I was passing as male. And
Mhm.
that required, a lot of uh, outside intervention. I got on hormones. I had to meet with doctors. I had to meet with therapists. It's not an easy thing to transition in the United States, especially as a young person. And I think that that's been a big myth that has been propagated in the media in the past 4 or so years. I think that, well, for example, I came out in senior year of high school, but I wasn't on hormones, and the roles that I had were lead female roles, even though I was me as Cal, I was still playing women because I did not pass or read as a man. And they most of the time directors don't cast based on gender identity. They cast based on presentation. um, and I think that that can be very difficult for people who either can't get on hormones or don't or choose not to pass or um, for a variety of different reasons. And I think that can be also very difficult for people who are in difficult living situations who don't have the ability to pass.
Thank you for that. Um,
I have to say that has been my experience as well, in general,
oh,
that I didn't get cast as male roles until I medically transitioned.
look at that. We are learning, folks. Um, the art of being seen. I have a bunch of different questions. This is listed for you as being a first-time student filmmaker. So this is the first time you've made a film or first time you've made a documentary, just so I'm clear.
First time I've made no, sorry. First time I've made a film that has been distributed on a wide scale basis.
Gotcha. Okay.
Everything previous to this has just been assigned and submitted for classes.
Understood. Okay. So obviously all of us do something for the very first time. I imagine that there's a bunch of excitement and or apprehension and fear. So coming out of this experience, was there anything you took away from it that you can take to the next film? Like something you learned on your own set, something you were afraid of that you conquered, something you can share with us?
I learned a lot doing
Mm.
this film because it was the first time I'd done something on a professional level scale. I think the biggest thing was just the bones of the process for me. The like first time going out and getting release forms for everybody, first time ever reaching out to a participant, not just casting someone, but like asking someone, "Hey, can I film your life for like 3 or 4 months and just follow you around with a camera?" And then the idea of getting those people who agree with that they would be on camera to feel comfortable around you when you do have it, because the camera does like provide this external being within the room that is not just a human being. So that process was like a really big learning curve for me. I'm very lucky that one of my camera operators has a full feature-length documentary already. And so he was very helpful in getting, like, if I had a question, if I had a thing about process that I was like, what is the best way to do this? He would have the previous experience to give me an answer.
Okay, I get you. And for you, Cal, I can imagine I've had this same question asked to me. Well, can we film you and can we be invasive and follow you around and do all of those fun things to make a movie? So I guess I want to ask you, what was the number one reason that you chose to say yes?
Honestly, because it sounded it sounded fun. And I thought it would be a fun experience. I struggle with a lot of anxiety in my personal life unrelated to being trans, and I have a hard time like saying yes to new experiences. So this was also sort of me pushing myself to go and say yes and do something. Um, and Martine and his crew were great. I mean, very minimally invasive. Honestly, I've spoken to some people in Spring Awakening who were um, in the show, and even people who were in the saloon, which was the other production that was filmed. And everyone was like, I couldn't even realize that the cameras were there. And I think that's a sign of a very good documentary. So a
Yeah.
lot of it is, well, all of it is very candid, and I think that Haley and Jesse did a very good job. And of course, Martine, they did a very good job directing as well. But yeah, it was a really fun experience, though. I'm very glad that I uh, pushed myself to do it.
Well, and there are some parts within the course of the film where we're listening to dialogue and some of the things that you said. And I imagine because this is so personal to you, was there any reservation about being so vulnerable? Because you are going to a camera and you're allowing strangers, people you have never met, to judge you, to watch you, to really assess you. And that was not frightening for you?
It definitely was. I think that my a lot of my nervousness and reservation just came from safety. The political climate around trans people in the United States is not good. And as someone who passes as cis probably like 90% of the time, I am very safe in my um, presentation right now. And I think being so open about being trans kind of gives away some of that safety. Um, but I thought it was more important to be vulnerable and to be as open and candid as possible, not only for the sake of the documentary, but for the sake of other young trans people in theater and elsewhere, that it is okay and that you can be seen and you are not, the enemy of the United States just for being yourself.
Thank you for saying that. Martine, I noticed, and this is an observation as the film critic in me, one of the things that's nice about what you do within the course of the film is you're not just showing the outside reflection, meaning Cal is a person, Cal is a performer, but you're also showing some of the inside reflections that go there. So, how difficult was that? Meaning, was it easy for this to flow with him? Did you have to give guidance?
So funnily enough, we got maybe in a couple weeks into filming, and Jesse, my editor, and I were talking about it. We do part of this class was doing a thing called rushes, which is you take the footage from the day previous time you filmed and you edit it down for the rest of the class to kind of take a look at what you're doing and give you feedback. So while you're actively filming, it's part of the learning process. And while we were editing rushes, one of the things that Jesse and I noticed was that Cal was actually really open to being on camera in the sense that like we didn't have to like there was no added stiffness. Like sometimes when you put a camera on people, they're like very aware and
Yep.
they'll kind of, oh, I'm gonna freeze up now. Cal would talk to us, which is great. Like we loved it. We were like, this is documentary gold. He's willing to talk to us on camera. That moment, one of the favorite parts of the film to me ever is when he comes out and he's like, I hate the men's bathroom. We're going to 216. And he says that right to Haley. I wasn't even there. I was down the hall talking about release forms when that happened with the director. And
Mhm.
so I got back and Haley pulls me aside and she's like, I got this great moment. He like comes out of the bathroom and he's like, I hate the men's bathroom. And I just kind of followed him. And I was like, great. You just did your job and you did an excellent job at it too. And it was just, we didn't have any kind of issues like that, even with like, I think I came up to him at the end of rehearsal and once and was like, hey, so can I film you doing a testosterone shot? I know that's probably super intimate. And I think the quote was, I don't give a gaff. Like he was really just like, I'll do whatever. And so that made him such a good participant for us.
Now, if I were to ask you this question, did you do this film thinking to yourself, I really want people to be engaged and entertained, or did you also do this to educate them?
I think it's a combination of both. Um, I Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. I think obviously you don't want to be like the boring documentary participant, and just kind of like sit there and like I don't want to be like I don't know. Um, but I also think that a lot of the fear and stigma against trans people comes from ignorance, because a lot of people, if they don't know that they know a trans person in their life, um, and they very, very well might. And I think that sort of just presenting myself, and as a normal person, like all trans people are, I
Yeah.
think I really wanted to do that. I didn't want to sort of fall into this trap of I need to perform for the camera. I just wanted to be myself. And I think that um, showing that and showing that like trans people are just like normal people, which to you and I sounds like common sense, but for some
Mhm.
people, that might be like new information. And I think was that was sort of like the mantra that was guiding um, I don't want to say my performance, but uh, why I was so open um, when the camera was on me.
Okay. Either of you can answer this question. This is more of a technical question. Some of the scenes we find you performing, as in rehearsing, performing, being part of the theater. So that's a large group of people. So from a filmmaker standpoint, how difficult was that? Because you are actively filming people that is not just one focus here. Now you've got a ton of people, you're in their rehearsal, you're in their space, etc. How complex is that for a filmmaker to tackle?
Uh, Honestly, not complex at all. Page Stage was incredibly open to having people with a camera there. At the
Okay.
time, two of the members of what we call E-board, so the people in charge of the club, and who both of the directors of the show were in the film major with me, so they are
Okay.
well familiar with having to do strange things for a film assignment. And they really just jumped in head first and were like, yeah, yeah, Remy, whatever you want and need. And so we came there for the first day of both to the Saloon and Spring Awakening. And each of the directors individually was like, we have this guest here and they're going to introduce themselves. And I just was like, hi, I'm doing a documentary on trans actors within theater. And I will be passing around a sheet that says you are comfortable being filmed on camera. Like, let me know if you're not, or don't, just don't sign it and let me know that you don't sign it. And that was it. And I think out of the entire group of people had one person not sign and we just filmed around them.
Oh my
They were
God.
really open to it. To this day, I have made friends. I mean, obviously, I have become friends with Cal, but even just people who are listed as ensemble in this film, I am friends with because I hung out with them. And sometimes they still ask me, like, "Hey, how's Jesse doing?" Like they don't even see him anymore, and they're curious about like that guy who used to follow me around with a camera all the time. And so I think it was a really good experience. I talked with Haley, my DP, a lot about the type of shots I wanted. We did a lot of pre-production research, and was able to communicate her if I was like, oh, I want this scene to be more intimate, so focus more on Cal and maybe Kyler, or I want this
Mhm.
to be more of a wide scene where we get everybody in the ensemble because it's a song like The Bitch of Living or something, and it's more focused on the group rather than just on the character of Ernst.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, I understand this premiered at the University of Connecticut, the Rainbow Center. I'm curious to ask at the premiere, what was the response like?
It was great. We had about 50 people attend,
Ooh,
most of whom were from Page to Stage, but it was really good. Like we got good laughs. There's some things in there that read as inside jokes. And obviously the club gets those inside jokes, so it was
sure.
really well received. And we had a Q&A panel and we had a lot of active discussion during that.
Very, very nice. My question is, I'm curious, a lot of filmmakers who will do films like this, and obviously this has a connection to the trans community, will you be taking it to various groups, organizations, things like that, and screening it with them and showing them this product?
So yeah, literally yesterday, I went back to my old high school, and did a screening of this for their Sexuality and Gender Alliance Club. It was also open to generally anybody who wanted to attend, but it was sponsored by the SGA Club, in that school. And I worked
Okay.
with the facilitator, their counselor Nina Shea, to like arrange that and make it happen. It was important to me because I came out at ACT, that high school, that like I have the ability to bring it back there. And like, it was important to another person on the crew, Jesse and I are both alumni, so it was important for us to bring it back to that school because a
Okay.
lot of the premonition for this documentary started back in high school for me.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. So I guess my last question to you is this. As a film reviewer, when I watched your film, this is how I condensed it. This is my view. If someone were to ask me what the film is about, I would say the art of being seen is a threefold. By that, I mean we follow the journey of one person who is not only discovering himself every day, but allowing the audience to discover elements of himself, allowing them to be vulnerable with him, allowing them to be joyous with him, and most importantly, to appreciate the differences that we have and to embrace them. But I am not the creator. So if I were to ask you to, in two sentences, tell me what the art of being seen is to you.
The Art of Being Seen to me is a story of trans joy within theater and the story of an actor who has found himself through theater and found theater as a safe space to be as a trans person.
And Cal?
I think Martine really hit the nail on the head, but for me, The Art of Being Seen is a film about how uh, performance and just, I guess, hobbies and living life in general, um, as a trans person, um, can be joyous, and we don't have to be afraid.
Hmm, well put. Now, I understand that at this moment, people cannot see it as of yet, meaning we don't know exactly where you're going to be screening as of yet. So, my question to you both is, what do you have coming up in the future? I know you had mentioned the new project. Anything else that you want to tout or anything else that people need to know about?
I mean, my main thing I would plug right now is upcoming next semester. I am the production stage manager and producer for a showing of 35 millimeter, the musical, that like if you're in CT, I will be advertising it heavily. That's like my big passion project for the semester. My senior thesis, when peering in, will not be available to the public right away because I also want that to go through a film festival run, but it will be
Gotcha.
completed next semester.
Gotcha. And as for you, Cal, is there anything you're participating in the near future?
Not yet, actually. I currently just started a new full-time job.
Oh,
So I am currently working at a school, and that has been sort of, I have to like settle into that schedule before I start looking into performing again. But I am definitely going to be on stage again. This was not my last time performing.
very nice. So this is what I like to say to both of you in closing. Thank you so much for being so inspiring and engaging and entertaining and just you've made a difference in the lives of others. And you may not necessarily see that right now, but after this film has been screened 100 times over, or as many people that see it, they will appreciate it in general as a whole. So I thank you both for your efforts and for your time.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.